Anyway, it's going to be a good year. How many of you believe that to be true? 2013. I think it's going to be a year of victory, a year of blessing, a year of joy. And there's just three things I want to quickly mention to you that I think are crucial. And one is expectation. Expected. You know, we have seen so many times that we tend to get an awful lot of what we expect. Now, without making more of that than we should, without making it some formula, some magic formula, I'm just simply saying that most of the time, or much of the time, we're going to get an awful lot of what we expect. I mean, if we expect bad to happen, it just seems like we attract more bad. If we expect good to happen, I think we attract more good. Now, I personally have always expected good. My wife can attest to that. I always think that times are good and getting better. So I have to confess to you that I'm excited about 2013, but then what's new? You know, I mean, I was excited about 2012 also, but at any rate, and 11 and 10 and 9 and 8 and on back. But I do believe that I just feel in my bones that God's getting ready to do something exciting for us. And not just us here, but all over our country and maybe all over our world. But we need to expect it. We want to expect something good to take place. Expect it to work out for you. God said in Romans 8:28, He said, all things work together for the good of them that love God and are called according to His purpose. I like a paraphrase of that I read that said all things work together. Same thing, just put in a little bit different words. All things work together for the good to them that love God and are fitting into His plans, called according to His purpose. That was such revelation to me when I saw that I thought it answered so many things in my own life. So many times that I've had a great plan, and I've talked to God about it. And I've told God, in essence, and not in these words, but kind of like, here, Lord, here's my plan. You do your part, and I'll do my part. And God never wanted to do His part because He never said He would work my plan. Not a single place in all the Bible. But He did say that I could work on His plan. And if I find out what He's got in mind and I move into that spot and appropriate that part, I can expect something good to happen. I can expect something to take place. If I do the things He told me to do. You know that verse that they read this morning, that Audley read this morning, where Jesus said, peace, my peace leave unto you. Therefore, don't be afraid, don't feel worried or apprehensive, and I'm putting some words in there, but that's in essence what He said. Now think about that. Jesus was never worried. How many of you know that to be true? He was never anxious. He was never disappointed. He was never concerned. He knew exactly what was going on. He always knew what was happening. He was the epitome of peace. And He said He had the ability and the power to give it away. If He wanted to, He could give the same peace He had to someone else. It didn't diminish what He had, but it added to what we had. But we have to take it if we want it. And He's given it to us. And I try to remind myself anytime that I don't feel at peace, anytime that I'm worried about something, that Jesus told me that if I wanted to, I could use His peace. I could have peace. So there's never any reason for me not to feel peaceful. Now, you know something? We can't always control our feelings. You can't always control that. But I can almost always control my thoughts, at least to a degree. Sometimes they may get away from me, but most of the time I can bring my thoughts back in line with what God said. And if I ever keep my thoughts in line with what God said, believing what He told me I could do, then I can have as much peace as I want to in the midst of whatever might be going on. I read one year of an artist that was hired to paint a picture of perfect peace. And the picture they came out with was a roaring waterfall, coming down with great thunder, and wind blowing, and storms on the clouds on the horizon, and a tree with a little nest, and little bird in the nest, and the bird was singing. And his idea was, there's perfect peace. In the midst of the waterfall, in the midst of the storm coming, in the midst of the wind that might be blowing somewhere, in the midst of the cloud storms or whatever it is, he was right there at peace, and that should be us. We can be just as peaceful as we want to be because Jesus said, my peace give unto you. Therefore, don't worry and don't be afraid, but enjoy that peace. But you've got to expect it. You've got to expect it to be yours and have it. Expectation. Say expectation. It's good to expect something good to happen. Sometimes I've done some things in my life that I didn't expect much to take place. And I was usually right. I didn't expect very much. Expectation is a powerful thing. If you expect something to happen to you when you come to church on Sunday morning, you're almost always going to see something happen to you. If it's a ho-hum experience, that's about what you're going to have come out of it. Expectation is powerful. We went to, Bobby and I went to, Aunt Cheryl, went to one meeting when we were living in Delhi, Louisiana. We drove to Dallas to go to a Catherine Kuhlman meeting. You heard of Catherine Kuhlman? And we'd never been to her meeting. It's the only one where we went to. Didn't know anything about her, really. But I heard there was a lot of healing took place, and so we went. And we were up there in the front row. Now, this is the Sattler Hilton Hotel. It held 2,000 to 3,000 people, big ballroom. Held meetings there before, and it was a great big ballroom, and it was packed. And it's on a Wednesday afternoon. And it's in the afternoon. It starts at noon. Now, a Wednesday afternoon, a meeting that starts at noon, means that you don't have very many people in their 20s and 30s because most of them have got to be working in their 40s. I mean, they're working their job, and they can't just get off on Wednesday and go to a meeting. So what we had was an awful lot of people over 60 years old in that meeting. And then there was a lot of preachers and different ones. And so anyway, we're in the front row, and it's wonderful. And in order to gain admittance, you had to have a ticket for the Saturday night banquet that the Full Gospel Businessman was doing this, see. And we couldn't be there on Saturday night, but we bought the tickets so we could get in on Wednesday. But at any rate, we're there, and the place fills up, and so they want all the ministers to come up on the platform to make more seats. I had to give up my seat because I'm right there in the front row. So I went up, though, as it turned out, I sat behind the pulpit, her pulpit. And I mean, I'm like 6, 7, 8 foot away, real close. And here's a great big grand piano here. And here's a guy comes out looking real pretentious. We let the thing down, me and another preacher there, so we could see better, the grand piano thing. And here he comes out and he puts it back up. And he's got on a tuxedo with tails. And he's very, and I thought, what? Who's this guy? And someone said, well, his name is Dino. And I thought, I'd never heard of him before, Turned out he was a very... Do you know about Dino? You've heard of him? Yeah, he was very well. Anyway, he plays, And then pretty soon here comes a wrestler. He looked like a wrestler. Bodyguard of some kind. Mean-looking dude, And he's carrying Catherine Kuhlman's Bible. And I don't know how big it was, but he's so big it looks like it's a teensy little thing. He's carrying it in both hands. And he's coming up on the platform. And she follows him. And she's got this long white dress with long. And she's tall, very thin. And she's very flamboyant, and she says, oh, are all you here to see Catherine Kuhlman? And I think, well, duh. Yeah. And about then I'm thinking, why'd we drive all the way over here from Delhi? Who is this person? And so then she tells a story about some little kids she saw that day. Nothing wrong with them. They were just little kids. And she cries some real tears. I'm close. I see some big drops falling. And I'm thinking, man, this lady is a bona fide kook. And so then she says that God was healing a couple of ladies. And I'm thinking, that's not the way. You don't do that like that. She don't know how to do this thing. See, I know how to do. You preach first and then you give an altar call. She was just doing that ahead of time. She hadn't preached or anything, And here come these two ladies, and she tells them, they say God healed her back. And I think, yeah, well, I mean, I want to see something, So she tells them touch their toes. And I mean, they're between like me and her, and I could reach out and touch them. Now, I'm going to tell you something, see. These ladies have lived a while, and they've eaten well. They haven't been hitting the gym. I always had trouble touching my toes all my life. They not only touch their toe, they put their hands flat on the floor. I'm impressed because I know something happened to them. I mean, I can believe now their back got healed. I mean, that was an incredible thing. And then one after the other, after the other, after the other, she brings up people healed, demonstrated. It was an amazing thing. I began to totally change my mind. And I thought to myself, and I told God then, I'm not going to criticize your workers from now on, however they dress or talk. I'll just leave that up to you. You obviously do your own hiring and your own firing, and it's not up to me to make my, because she was flamboyant, she looked weird, she looked wild, she talked crazy. But I want to tell you, those were genuine miracles that took place. It was an amazing thing. It was impressive. And one of the most impressive things was at the end of it, she filled that platform full of people giving their heart to Jesus. When she came to Seattle, she packed the place so much. She used what we used to call the ice arena. We went down to the meeting. We couldn't even get in. We started to pull in the parking lot. The guy said, "Are you going to the Catholic communion?" We said, "Yes." He said, "There's no point." He said, they're standing outside. So we went home. They wanted her to use the bigger place. The Kingdom wasn't built yet. She wouldn't do it. She refused to hold a meeting in any place that she couldn't overfill. She wanted to overfill it. And her reasoning was that the expectation was high. You pack a place and everybody expects more to happen. And even if you have 5,000, if it's in an arena that holds 20,000, it's like nobody showed up. She believed that expectation made a difference. She knew God was going to do it. But she wanted the people to have expectation in their hearts and to be looking for a miracle to happen. Because she knew that the Holy Spirit really doesn't do very much if we don't want Him to, if we don't expect it. So expectation is a powerful thing to have. But on top of that, we need anticipation. You need to anticipate that something's going to take place. Believe it's going to happen. Believe it's going to take place. Romans 6:11. And I'm going to paraphrase this without doing it any harm. It says, consider yourself closed to the devil, closed to sin, and open to God. Your mind, your thoughts, your heart. You remember the Bible says that the weapons of our warfare are not carnal, but they're mighty through God to the pulling down of strongholds, bringing every thought into the obedience of Christ. This is where we fight our battles, our spiritual battles. We don't fight our spiritual battles with our hands. It's on our head. Somebody tells you, oh, all this faith is just in your head. Of course, that's exactly where it's at. That's what the Bible tells us. It's in our mind. It's not in our feet. It's not in our hands. It's in our head. Bring in your thoughts. What you think is important. What you anticipate and expect to happen is important. Anticipation. You and I want to anticipate that 2013 is going to be a great, fantastic year for us personally. And the more you anticipate it, the more you're going to have of it. If you anticipate it's going to be bad, doom and gloom and agony and fear and worry, well, it's not that we could cause all that to happen, but you're going to get more of it. You're going to get more of what you anticipate. The Bible tells us that we can be open to God and closed to the devil. And yet, the sad truth is, too often, and I'm not talking about you, but I'm just saying too often, too many people are closed to the things of God and open to the devil. And I mean godly people. I mean just people that just are believing for the worst and seldom believing for the best. They're anticipating something bad's going to happen rather than anticipating something good's going to happen. A lot of it is going to depend upon you and me. We need to believe it. For several years, we've said around the first of the year, it'd be a wonderful time to make a few notes of things you're praying for. I mean, just to put them on paper. Number them. 4, 5, or 6 things that you're praying for. Started doing that one year when my mom had a letter that came to her that was addressed by her to her. It's one that she had filled out. She had forgotten about it, but a year before that, she had filled it out in a prayer meeting that she was in where they got everyone to do that and address their envelope, and then the lady that was running the prayer meeting mailed it to them a year later. And so she got it. Listed 10 things she'd been praying for. And you know, all but one of them was there. I mean, she prayed for some things. She prayed for another refrigerator. She prayed for some things like that. And she got them. She had them, every one of them. And not a single one of them did she recognize as an answer to prayer when they came. Not a one. They all seemed to come so naturally. It's real good to have some expectation, to anticipate something good. Not too bad if you write down some things. Audrey Lynn listened to me one year. Because over in 1 John it talks about us having the petitions that we ask God for. And she petitioned God and wrote it down for another house, a bigger house. Their house in Montlake Terrace had not really grown smaller, but it had seemed like it the more children that they had, you know, and they had 4 little ones in the same, and you know, the one bathroom. You know, it was a standard 985 square foot, 3-bedroom house that probably umpteen million was built in the country, you know, over the years and years and years. She wanted a bigger house. She wanted more than, she wanted 2 or 3 bathrooms and outrageous stuff, you know. Dumb kid. I knew better. Yeah, I hate to tell her, you know. I mean, you don't want to kill somebody's faith, you know. And she wrote it down, and you know why I knew better? Because I knew one thing. I knew they couldn't afford it. They didn't have the money. They couldn't buy it. They couldn't afford to get it. There was no way in the world. But I guess it was later that year? They were living in that house in Marysville. Still got it. Bigger than what she asked for. More bathrooms than she thought. More room than they possibly could use, except it seems like it's working out pretty good now since she's turned her house into a private daycare center for her grandchildren, which she just keeps having more and more and more and more and more. She said she's going to have to get a different vehicle because you don't have enough room for all these car seats if she tries to go somewhere, you know. And so it just happened. It just happened. God has a way of doing impossible things. I remember when we were going in Lakewood Church, made some trips to India, and then there was one of our other men was going to go. I guess it was maybe it was Bobby, maybe going to go, and that one guy, what was his name? The ding-a-ling that never got back from LSD. We thought he's going to go to India, he said, and his whole thing was he had a dream. But Ken didn't have 2 nickels to rub together. So this is a trip that's going to cost him, whatever it was, $1,000, $1,500. And we said, you know, Ken, let's be a little real here. No. He said, God will provide. And Ken goes on to get himself a bag from somebody. He didn't own a suitcase. He gets him one from somebody. And he's ready to pack, and he's ready to go. And we're trying to temper him down a little, you know. And, of course, I do still remember going out and seeing them off, you know, as old Ken's getting on the airplane, because at the last minute, I mean, about a week before the tickets had to be done, a lady just from out of town heard about him. Something. She wrote him a check and mailed it for him to go. Ken was not even surprised. He had anticipated it all the time. Now, those are some bizarre things, admittedly. But I want you to know it's good for you and me to be open to God all the time and close to the devil and have some expectation that some good things are going to take place. Can you say amen? Amen. And when you do all those things, I think you're going to have some realization that's going to happen. It's going to take place. It's good and important to believe you've got it. Believe you've already got it. Act like it. Act like you've got it. Sometimes that'll really work. Work for us. I remember in Delhi, one of the evangelists came through and asked me why we were in Delhi. And I said, well, you know, we believe God sent us here, but we sure would hope for him to send us somewhere else. And he said, how you praying? I said, I'm praying for God to open a door. And he said, no. He said, something happened. He says, no. He said, wrong way to pray. He said, pray it's already taken place, and it's on the way to you right now. It's already happened. And I thought, you know, there's a certain amount of truth in that. And everything we have to use with, God does want us to use some common sense with what we do. But I'm going to tell you, it does make common sense to believe more that God's going to do for you than it does to believe he won't. Act like you've already got what you're asking God for. Believe it's happening. I mean, really, expect it, anticipate it, and have some realization that he is going to give. He's already given you peace, and he's already given you joy. And if you're not experiencing it, it's just because you're not experiencing it. It's yours. It's right there for you. Just reach out and take it. You can have all the peace you want because Jesus had all the peace that there was. And he said he wanted your joy to be full, as much as you could possibly hold. He'll fill you up with joy. Now, if we're not always filled with joy, and none of us really are, it's not the fault of God because he's given it to us. It's because we have closed off a little to the blessing and opened up a little bit to the doubts, to the devil, who will try to make you disappointed. So believe that you are closed to failure and open to success. And then thank God for the good things. I truly believe we've got a wonderful year to serve God that's coming upon us. It's going to be the best one we've ever had. Let me believe it to be true.